Take 10, breathe in, let the healing begin. Open your mind and find the strength from within. Welcome to the Therapist Felisha Podcast.
Welcome to the episode 2 of the Therapist Felisha Podcast. I'm your host, Therapist Felisha, and today we are going to be talking about boundaries. So let me get everything situated here so we can get going. Yes. Okay. So, like I was saying, I'm your host, Therapist Felisha, licensed clinical social worker, educator, advocate, and survivor. And here's what people don't understand. A lot of people struggle with boundaries, not because you don't care, not because you're weak, and not because there is something wrong with you. Boundaries are hard when your brain learned that keeping other people happy was safer than protecting yourself. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you stayed quiet because you did not want to upset somebody? And how many times have you answered that phone call when you were exhausted and you agreed to do something that you didn't want to do? And here's a really good one. How many times have you forgiven a behavior that hurt you, or you kept giving chance after chance because you were afraid of losing a relationship? Oh, but later you felt angry, resentful, exhausted, and maybe even disappointed in yourself. The problem is not that you do not know how to set boundaries. The problem is that somewhere along the way, you learn that your needs were less important than everybody else's. So, here is something that I want you to understand. Before we can even think about setting boundaries, we got to know our values, because boundaries are not just random rules, you guys. They are ways you protect what matters to you. If you do not know what you value, then you will not know what you need to protect yourself. So let's look at this. Maybe you value peace, respect, honesty, rest, loyalty, and safety. Drop down in the comments some of those things that you may value. Take a moment and ask yourself, what do I want more of in my life? What do I want less of? What do I need in order to make me emotionally safe? Because every boundary starts with the truth about what matters to you. And if you value honesty, then eventually you have to stop making excuses for the lies. And sometimes the lie is not what we tell other people. Sometimes the lie is what we tell ourselves. We say, it's fine, when it's really not. We say, they didn't mean it, when we are really hurt. And we say, I'm okay, when we're really exhausted, overwhelmed, and angry. We say yes when every part of us wants to say no. And then we wonder why we feel so disconnected from ourselves. The truth is, boundaries and honesty, they go hand in hand, because a boundary is a truth spoken out loud. And if I'm honest that I am hurt, then the boundary becomes, I would not let you speak to me that way again. If I am honest that I need rest, then the boundary becomes I'm not answering my phone after 9 p.m. And if the boundary becomes with me being honest that I keep saying yes because I'm afraid people will leave, then the boundary becomes I'm going to say no anyway. For so many people, especially people who learn to survive by keeping everyone else happy, honesty feels dangerous because telling the truth might bring guilt, anxiety, fear. Fear that someone will be disappointed, fear that they will be angry, fear that they will leave. And that is why boundaries are so hard. Not because you don't know what to say, but because a part of you learned that keeping other people comfortable was safer than being honest about what you need. Maybe as a child, you had to stay quiet to keep the peace. Maybe you learned to take care of everyone else. And maybe you learned that love had to be earned. So now, every time you try to set a boundary, your brain reacts like you're doing something wrong, even when you're doing something healthy. But you know what? I need you to hear me clearly. Guilt does not always mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt means you're doing something different. So, what do you do when anxiety and guilt show up when you try to set a boundary? Well, you say no anyway, but you say it kindly, clearly, and without over explaining. You do not need a 3-page explanation. You do not need permission. You do not need everyone to agree with your boundary in order for it to be valid. Here's a few examples of how you can set boundaries and some things you can say when you don't know what to say. It's just this simple, but it feels simple, but it's this simple. I'm not able to do that. That does not work for me. I need some time to think about that. I am no longer comfortable with that. And if someone keeps pushing, I am going to give you a method that you can use. It's called the broken record method. Now, this method came from dialectical behavior therapy, and we're going to have a whole episode on it later down the road, okay? But I want to show you how it works. You calmly repeat yourself without defending, without arguing, and without explaining. I'm not able to do that. But why? I'm not able to do that. Come on. Just this once. I understand. And I'm still not able to do that because boundaries are not about controlling someone else. They are about being clear about you, about what you will and will not tolerate. Every time you tell the truth without abandoning yourself, you teach your brain something new. You teach yourself that you are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to protect your peace. And the people who respect your boundaries are usually the people who can tolerate your honesty. So if setting boundaries feel hard for you, that does not mean that you are failing. It means that you are learning a new way to survive, a way where you don't have to keep shrinking, people pleasing, apologizing, and abandoning yourself just to keep other people comfortable. Hmm. So this week, I want you to ask yourself one question. Where in my life am I saying yes when I really mean no. And what would happen if I finally told myself the truth? What do you guys think about that? I want you to put it in the comments. And the comments are important, as you know. The comments are important because that's what starts discussions. You have a right to say no. And that feeling that you get, that guilt, that anxiety that you get when you really want to say no, what I need you to do this. I want you to think about this. All you school bus drivers, you're going to be able to identify this. You're driving the bus and your children are loud, and they are possibly having an aggressive outburst and people are arguing. So what the bus driver does, it stops the bus. He or she stops the bus. And it explains to the children that this is not tolerable. This is not okay. And in order for us to move forward, it has to stop. And that's what I want you to do with your thoughts that are feeding your guilt. Your guilt doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Your guilt means that you've done something new. So drop down in the comments. Tell me what you think about boundaries. Tell me what are you going to do and how are you going to start saying no and how you are going to start protecting yourself. So thanks so much for joining and thanks for taking 10 with me. I'm Therapist Felisha and I will see you next week when we talk about trauma bonds. This is going to be good, y'all. So make sure you're joined. So remember these 3 things. Pray over your brain, love yourself, and turn your pain into purpose. I'll see you next week. Take 10.